Hi, welcome to our fourth video in our enterprise medical data management system. In this video, we will be looking at modifying our data tables. Now, if you remember from our getting started video, we had imported some data tables, one for diagnosis, one for symptoms, one for medication, one for lab work, and one for examination. Now, in doing an examination, we're able to select from a drop-down for symptoms, lab work, examination, treatment, and medication. Now, these drop-downs basically gets populated from these data tables. Now, the idea is to capture as many as of the symptoms, the treatment, the medication, the lab work, the examination as is humanly possible. However, we live in the real world, things will happen. We will have a symptom popping up that wasn't captured from our data table. So what do? We have the ability to modify the data tables on the fly. That is, if it is a symptom, a new symptom pops up, we have the ability to add that new symptom and apply it immediately to the examination. So without further ado, I'll basically do some examples, just to give a better feel as to what I'm trying to explain. Now, on the screen, I have an examination well prepped, and I'm at the presentation section. Now, if you remember from our examination video, we basically can select a symptom based on an area of the body. So if I click on chest, I can look at all the symptoms that we capture associated with the chest. Now, what if a symptom comes in that's not pre-entered? What do? We have the ability, if you look here, we have the ability to add a new symptom or to edit existing symptom. So let's go ahead and create a new symptom. I'm asked to enter a description. And if you look at the description heading, it says description left or right. I'll add a third option, which is center. Center meaning the human body is divided naturally into two views, a left view and a right view. I'm adding a third view, which is center. So that's a central view. So anything that doesn't qualify as either left or right would be classified as center. For example, the chest. There's no left or right chest, you just have a central chest, the nose, the forehead, etc., etc. The abdomen, so all of those will be classified on the center. So let's go ahead and add a new symptom for the left side of the body, the front left, because we have to make the distinction between the back left and the front left. So let's call it for now test symptom. And I need to give it a view, so I call it left. And I enter, asking the view, front left, what part of the body is being affected. So I can go ahead and say it's the left thigh. Gender can affect both genders, so I'll select both and then I can save. Now if I were to go to the left thigh, you should see my test symptom left. So I was able to, on the fly, add a new symptom, and I can select that, and it becomes a part of the examination. What if I made a mistake and I need to correct? I can remove it. I can go back to edit. I have a lot of symptoms. I can sort it. And that was Thai, and I have to put in the exact word for word. Well, it seems to have a lot of Thai here. So let's test. Alright. Okay, there was no Thai in my description. That is why it didn't come up. It's a test symptom, but it's peculiar to the Thai. So I can change it. So it's male dominated. So I can say, okay, now change it to male. So it's still there. But if it was a female customer, it wouldn't turn up because I say it's peculiar to the male gender. Alright? So I'm able to edit, and I'm able to create new and edit, of course. So that's it for the symptom. Similarly, for the medical checkup, for the tests, I have predefined tests. I can always go in and add a new test. So tests. So this is a test. Agenda, both. Save. So if I go back, I now have my new test, which is a test. I can select. Similarly, I can edit. And I can say, oh, it's a female test only. So if I say female and I update, I won't see it again. Why? Because I'm doing a male customer. So it won't come up under a male customer. So if I want to see it on the male customer, I would have to go back, test, and say it's a male, gender, afflicted by the, well, who should be executing this test. It might be a prostate test, something peculiar to the male gender. So if I go back to test, I'm now seeing test. Alright? So I can now add a test for male or female or for both. Similarly for examination, now examination is a bit more tricky because we have to add categories for our examination. So if it is that we want a reminder, I can always look at what's there already. So these are the categories, and these are the different examinations with the status. Now, if you notice, for every category, there's a normal status, and there's an abnormal status, and there's a normal status. So they are like pairs, basically. So if you create an examination, you have to create one for normal result status and one for abnormal status. So let's go ahead with an example. So if I say new, so it's asking me to give a description. So this is a test exam. It's asking me for a category, and based on what we saw a while ago, it's a physical, PHY, physical exam, and the status is normal. Now remember I said if we create a normal, we also have to create an abnormal. But let's just one step at a time, enter. So the category, it gives an example, physical exam, normal, no space. So the category is PHYSICAL, physical exam. Right, there's no space. What's the gender? I can say both. Same will apply like the test a while ago. If I select a specific a specific gender, then this examination will only show for that specific gender as customer. So I wanted to show regardless of gender. So I say both and I save. So if I go back to examination, physical, normal, I should have test, physical exam, normal. Likewise, I can edit test. And I can say, I can make it active or inactive. This is a different status from the category status, which is normal or abnormal. So I can make it inactive if I want, so it wouldn't show. So if I go back, physical exam normal, it's no longer there because I made it inactive. So we would have to do now the other pair, which is the abnormal status, for the same examination. Alright? So lab screening, fairly straightforward, new. Lab screening, test lab work. What's the target group? Both genders. Save. So if I go back, I should see test lab work for both genders. I can select. Diagnosis, straightforward again. Let's look at all the possible diagnosis. Straightforward. So if I say new, I can say test diagnosis, target group, both genders. Now for diagnosis, because we have this quote unquote AI component, in order for it to become a suggested diagnosis based on symptom presented, we have to populate the list with possible symptoms. So we have to add some possible symptoms that will produce this diagnosis. So I know I have a test symptoms. I could put test here. I could put fever. No comma or anything, just some space. I could put cough. I could put pain is a bit general, but I could put pain. So if I save this, notice now I have a test diagnosis coming up because any symptom that included test, this is a possible diagnosis for that symptom. So that is why test diagnosis now comes up, because I'd selected a test symptom during the presentation section of the examination. So I can add that. Just to remind you, I have my test symptom. So the diagnosis, possibility, suggested diagnosis is a test diagnosis, whatever that test diagnosis. It's up to your imagination. Similarly to treatment, unknown treatment for now. If I go to all, view all the treatments, these are all the possibility. Now if I create a new treatment on the fly, of course, test, target group, both. These are the symptoms that the possible symptoms requiring this treatment. Anything with test, fever, cold, cough. So I just put the trigger words in my symptom treated list and I save. So if I go back to suggested, I see test treatment coming up because I have a test symptom around the front. So suggested treatment is the test, whatever test treatment that is. Medication, if I look at medication, I see all of these medications coming up because they have tests somewhere in the list as possible medication for possible symptoms. So we have test symptoms, so these are possible medication for that test, for the test symptom. So we can go ahead and we can add a new medication. Of course, you guessed it, test whatever this medication is. Target group, both. Oh, so basically it's a diagnosis and not the symptom. So this is the medication for the diagnosis. And I think I said symptom earlier on, but it's a diagnosis that we're basically tracking. So tests, send the diagnosis with tests. We leave it at that for now, and we save. So if I go back, back at my suggested, I should see my test medication, because the diagnosis had to do with the test diagnosis. So of course, test medication for test diagnosis. Can go ahead and add. I can put in my dosage, and I can put in if it should be repeated. I hope everything was clear. So this is the end of our modification of our data table. See you next video.